just jump straight in. People come in as they come. DevOps is a journey. Choose your own adventure. So, I'm Fabian and Ianarella. There's my picture in case you don't know what I look like. I work for 460 Degrees. We're an expert management agency. If you want to find out a lot about expert management agencies, come and see me a little bit later. We've got a booth out there. But I'm what they call a DevOps champion. So I champion the DevOps cause for the organisation. And today, we're going to talk a little bit about my favourite subject, DevOps. We're going to talk a little bit about what it is. You know, just have a look at what it's about. We're also going to talk about how to get started in your own DevOps journey. We're going to look at a real-life example, how I've used some of the tips that I'm going to give you today in real life and how it worked out. And then hopefully that will have inspired you to make your own start. So let's get started. Okay, so first question I always ask with anyone, whether it's a client, anybody, is why is DevOps important to you? Okay, these are some of the awesome answers that I get. You know, people want to deliver value to their customers. You know, that's the standard textbook answer. We're struggling with timely production releases. Everyone else is doing it, and we want to get involved. And then the one at the bottom, which is awesome, and this was me in my previous role actually. Now, there's a DevOps team in our organisation, and nobody really understands what they're doing or how they do it. I see somebody's laughing over there. All right, so during this presentation, we're going to do a little bit of audience interaction. It's only a small group, so we should be all right. We should all keep friendly. So, why is DevOps important to you? Anyone from the crowd? Just shout it out. You might not know, but just thought I'd ask. Well, why did you come here? Yeah,
I think if I don't get around it, I'm going to miss something.
Yeah.
Someone's going to ask me a question or expect me to do something with things.
Yeah.
I'm going to
That's great, yeah. Everyone else is doing it, right? But, yeah, and true, it's not an option anymore. I think Igor was talking about that in his presentation today. Anyone else? Yeah?
Deliver faster and more reliably.
Yeah, that's the key, right? Everybody wants to do the right thing, wants to add that extra value quickly, cheaply, as good as possible. Okay, they're all good reasons. Have a think about that because, you know, what's important is important, right? If it's not important to you, you won't get it done. If it's not important to your organisation, it won't happen. You won't learn about it, you know? Okay, so that's my definition for DevOps, my mathematical formula. It originated from this, right? It's not just about developers and operations people working together, it's about your whole organisation working together. But that's probably where it first started, right? But it's not about them just working together. You know, anyone can sit side by side and just work. It's about collaborating together, right? Working together, collaborating, two different things, right? Okay, so what's this DevOps thing all about? We're all tech people, we're all talking about tech. You know, is it about some of those tools up there? You know, continuous integration, I hear a lot about that. Building pipelines, the first thing you do in a DevOps sort of movement, let's build a pipeline, you know, CI/CD, software delivery. Is it about these things and these tools? You know what, it is about tech, right? But it's not solely that, right? DevOps is a way of working that's enabled by technology. So those tools enable you to deliver rapidly, to solve a couple of problems. But it's really about the way you work, right? It's about creating teams that have got everything they need, you know, cross-functional teams that have everything they need within the team to get that product from idea to production. Okay, think about it that way. It's about delivering value. Everything you do has got to deliver some point of value. Of course, we've been talking about that all day today. It's about continual improvement. Don't stop at what you've done today, because it's always something you can do to make it better, but drive the decision about what you make better from feedback. Okay, so grab feedback, whether it's from your customers, from your friends, whatever. Use that, or whether it could be metrics. Use that feedback to drive what improvements you deliver. Okay, so how do you start? Well, all good adventures start with a plan. Okay, so start off with, you need to develop a plan to get yourself going, and you need to understand what that plan is. But what you should be focusing on at the very beginning is small things, right? Look at some of your pain points in your organisation, right? So what are the things that really annoy you about your day-to-day? or about what you're seeing that team do. Every morning they come in and they restart the database server because it's crashed the night before. Those little things like that, you know, they're good things that you can pick up to automate, right? Look for opportunities for automation. And also look for new projects on the horizon. You know, often starting a DevOps sort of initiative on something that's huge and really core to your business can be very dangerous. So why don't we start on a new project that doesn't affect our core system? That we can kick that off in a new way. It won't have a massive impact if things will go wrong, and sometimes things do. But at least it gives you a little bit more freedom to experiment and try new ways of working. Okay, so then once you've got your few bits and pieces, we're going to work on this, we're going to work on that, we're going to work on this other thing. Set some goals around what you want to achieve with that. Is it that you want to deliver it quickly? Right? Is it that we want to deliver value to our customers? Whatever those things are, make sure that you write those goals down and you understand them. And then you need to work out a way to measure them. Like, how do you know you've achieved it? How do you know that this release that we did today actually made things better or worse? Did we get closer to our goal? Did we get further away? Right? Then the key to it is enabling the team. It's nothing worse than being given an assignment and then you start work on this project and then you realise that, hey, I can't complete this because I need tick-off authorisation from this team and I need someone else to get involved, and it just goes nuts. So make sure that you really enable them. Give them the keys to everything that they need to succeed. And in doing that, establish collaboration with that team and the other teams that they need to talk to. You know, depending on the size of your organisation, there might be multiple teams that need to interface to get this initiative to happen. Make sure those collaborations are established. Okay, but remember to keep it simple. All right? If this is the first time you're embarking on something like that, you want to keep it simple. You don't want to make it too complex. You're not going to change your organisation overnight, but you can change small things quite quickly. Right? Start small, share everything you do, make sure that other people understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, and know about, you know, whether it failed or succeeded. And then once you've done that one thing or a couple of things, find the next thing to keep yourself going. Never stop. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about a company that I worked at recently. They're a vehicle telemetry company, right? So they install embedded Linux devices into vehicles, commercial vehicles, trucks, buses, who knows? I don't think they do aeroplanes. But they enable the people working for the company to monitor their vehicles. Okay, so just a quick overview of what they do. You know, they've got a little IoT device, sits in the car, relays information back to a listener server, which is hosted in Amazon. So it's just an EC2 instance running Windows. They grab all the vehicle telemetry data and dump it in a database. Okay, then you've got the front end, another EC2 instance Windows server, reads the stuff out of the database and presents it to the user back at HQ. They can monitor the vehicle, they can tell if they're speeding, they've been driving too long, are they meeting compliance, is the vehicle overweight, all that really cool stuff to give them a good idea of what's happening in their business. So really cool company, they've got a really good product. It was actually quite exciting engagement. One other thing is that those EC2 instances, they sort of provision a pair of those per client, right? So this is what you're looking at is a setup for one client. So if you have another client, they'd set up a replica of this environment. So first day in, I had a chat to the team, and these are the people I spoke to, right? This is the way they work. The software developers over there, they build all that code that runs on the two EC2 instances. They build the back-end code and the front-end code. It's all in .NET, which is great. The embedded team work on that Linux device that goes in the car, right? They maintain the operating system and all the services that run on that system. Then you have the infrastructure team. They hold the keys to Amazon, right? They hold the keys to all the infrastructure and the production dev, everything. No one can touch any of that info except for, except for the infrastructure team. The testing team, these guys are awesome. They test everything. When any release that goes out, they have to test the code on those servers. They have to test the embedded devices, everything. They're responsible for giving the tick of approval for that release. And then you've got our friends in operations who man the phones and help with the production releases. Okay, so a bit of audience interaction time here. What are your thoughts on the team? I mean, they're all a pretty friendly bunch. Any ideas about the team structure or anything?
Many silos.
Yeah, they are, aren't they, right?
Issues.
Yeah, so it looks like there's going to be a lot of handovers.
And they look overlapping also.
Sorry, they
They look overlapping with each other.
yeah, a little bit. Yes, but they all get along well, and that's what makes some of these companies work, right? So even though they're very siloed, I've done my bit and I'm going to hand it over to the next bit, they all get along, they have a few arguments, and sometimes those relationships actually, while it may not be efficient, it actually makes the company work. So anyway, let's have a look. I walked in and I spoke to each of these teams separately and asked them, what's important? Because this is what I really want to know, because I didn't even know why they wanted me there at this point. And they said, our product delivery times. We can't get a release out the door in a timely amount. It takes us ages. It's just a killer. They also worried about the scale of their product. They said, these two EC2 instances, they hold thousands of vehicles, but we don't know when we're going to run out of steam, and we've got no way to scale it. So they weren't sure how to measure scale or how to scale their product. They were worried about data integrity, reliability, security, all the standard sort of things. But my team was there to look at the first two, so we're just going to cover that for today, or else we could be here a long time. Okay, so this is, so they're worried about software delivery times, right? So the first thing I looked at was the delivery cycle. How do they actually get stuff into production? I'll give you a sec to look at that. Right. Now I've simplified this process immensely, right? It took me more than about a week to work out the pathways. But basically a developer creates a feature based on a need. I don't know how long that takes. It can take anywhere from a couple of days to a few weeks. Then someone picks up that bit of code that's been compiled, that's been committed to their repo, and creates a release. That takes probably about a day if everything goes well. Then what happens? So they're dealing with like issues with software not building, because of the Git commits that have been made by multiple different developers. So it takes a long time. Then what they do is once they've got that ready and they think it works, they hand that over to the infrastructure team. Because remember, the infrastructure team have got the keys to infrastructure. Only they can deploy. So they roll it out, wait about 2 days. That goes past, they hand it over to the test team. Test team test it. Takes about 5 days, and that's when things are going well, right? So 5 days later, the test team have probably only tested the features that the developers have told them they've changed, because they haven't got time to test the whole thing. Right? If they find an issue, it goes back, right? So it goes back all the way to the front to the developer, fix this problem, and the whole cycle starts again. So this is on a good day. 5 days later, they're ready for a release. They talk to operations. They slowly trickle the release out to various customers. Sounds like fun, doesn't it? So, what do we know? What can we see about that whole plan? What do we think about that?
Integration.
Sorry?
Code integration could be done a lot better.
Yeah, that's right. So the build, that whole build thing, there's no automation there, right? Anybody see any other problems or things? Yes.
Well, yeah, it's the length of the test cycle and the fact that each time it's repeated,
It starts again. Yeah. So 5 days to yeah. So there could be like one feature in there, and it could take that time, like a radio button or something. Anything else anyone's picked up or can think about?
automated deployment.
There's no automated deployment, is there? Yeah. All right, so all those are excellent and valid points. They were building a really feature-rich piece of software. It was awesome, but they were doing it the same way they'd done it, from 10 years ago when the company first started. Okay, so this is what I saw. Okay, I'm an infrastructure person. I've grown up with Linux and Unix servers. So I saw the infrastructure picture first up. So I thought, instead of getting those, I'm reading it backwards. Automate the build process is what I really wanted to talk about first. So automating the build process, that person sitting there one day compiling that code, making sure there's no integration errors, that could be automated. Everyone's got a CI server these days, right? And then self-service environments, right? So at the moment, infrastructure are the only people that can provision environments. Wouldn't it be cool if the testing team could provision their own environment, if the dev could provision their own environment? It'd save that 2-day wait. Right? Then, of course, there's no testing framework, right? They're doing everything manually, and also load testing. We thought, maybe we can build something to load test the devices and the servers to see what they're capable of. Longer term, their architecture probably isn't right. If they want to scale to thousands and thousands of cars, they're going to need to be able to scale the infrastructure behind it. So maybe you're looking at, microservices or containerization further down the track, and getting off Windows, that might make things a lot easier. Okay, so we've got a few ideas now. So how do we build the culture or the team, or set the teams up to actually execute on this? What I like to do is put together cross-functional teams. Okay, so get all the people that you need from the organisation to make these capabilities work. Right, so I call these teams capability teams. So we're building capabilities. We're building the capability to self-service infrastructure. We're building the capability, building the CI capability within the organisation. Right, so you get all these people within the organisation together. They may not have all the skills they need. So there's no harm in getting a consultant. Come and see me if you need one. And there's no harm in getting new people in your organisation to help drive these initiatives. Right? In fact, it's quite a great idea, because you bring in a new point of view, you bring in new skill sets, right? And then when these teams are building these capabilities, they build them with a customer-centric point of view. So you're building them for internal customers. You're building it to improve the developer experience within your organisation. Look to the developers and the people you're building these for to make sure you're building the right thing. Showcase your product, make sure they're aware of what you're doing, because some of the times, you're building this great capability and functionality within your own organisation, and no one even knows that you're doing it, or that they can even use it. Okay, so if we're going to do that, which team structure would you choose? So, remember we had the whole layout of the teams. Would you lay out, so put your hands up if you choose option 1, where you've got all the people, like you've got an infrastructure person, a developer, a tester, and a consultant in there. Or, who's option 1? All right, okay, cool. Or would you just grab a bunch of consultants and chuck them in a room, and hopefully they can nut out the solution for you? Who chooses option 2? Right, good. This group's awesome. All right, so yes, option 1's the way to go. It's optimum, right? You've got a lot of domain context, right? You've got people within the organisation that have the keys to the right parts of the software, the right parts of the company, and you've also got a new person in there to help drive some of the tech, help inspire that team and kick them off and keep them going. However, this is what we got lumped with, right? The members of the team were so busy with their day-to-day, getting features out, supporting the customers, that they just didn't have time to even think about this. So I was put together with another DevOps style engineer and a couple of test automation guys to nut out this problem, to help them automate these things. So what we did is we sort of pulled in a little bit of help when we needed it, because obviously we didn't have the keys to their infrastructure, we didn't have access to any of their sort of testing methods. So to mitigate that, that's what we did. We sort of pulled in help from all areas as we needed it. So this is what we did. So basically, if you work with that structure, you're going to have issues. You're going to have issues when people leave, right? So the contractors aren't there forever, right? What happens when they leave? All that information, all that sort of structure and process, or technical capability is going to walk out the door if you're not involved. Okay. So what we did to countermeasure that is we dragged those members in. But what you could do is put what I would have done is put a permanent staff member in charge of that team. So that team of 4, I would have included someone maybe from the infrastructure team as sort of a team lead to run that initiative. So the initiative stays with them; they get some ownership around it. All right. Also, if you are stuck in that mode, regular showcases, like I was saying before, are going to help. So make sure people know what you're doing. In fact, I was talking to the devs on a day-to-day basis, like almost every hour I'd go tell them something new. Oh, we've just done this. This is happening. I've seen this problem. Stay in communication, like on them all the time, so they understand what's going on. Because the worst thing you can do is have a situation where there's a team over there doing something and nobody knows what it is. Okay, so this is what we built, and really, really, really simple. We built an infrastructure pipeline first. Basically, you commit some infrastructure code, it creates a CloudFormation template, and provisions a test environment. Easy. No testing, no magic around it, just this really simple pipeline to talk to Amazon. That was step one. Then we did the build environment. So we set up a Jenkins host, and basically we committed some code, we built the code, and then we provisioned it to the test environment that we just built before. There was no tests involved, no massive test rig, no nothing. We just wanted to make sure that the software actually compiled. And this is just keeping it simple. This is our first initial step. And that saved us a lot of time, and it picked up all those compilation issues that they were banking up sort of for that big release. Then we extended it. So the two testers we were talking about, they were working on those last two steps. So we had someone that was looking at implementing an end-to-end test, and again, it was very basic. We just set up an end-to-end test that would test first. The first test actually was curl the HTTP endpoint or HTTPS endpoint to make sure the site was up. Second test was actually, okay, can we actually log in? Because we figured out that if you do a login, 90% of the services should be running for that to succeed. So we had a pretty good sort of initial test to make sure that the actual software was working. And then we did a load test where where we emulated the data coming from the devices and we just threw it at the servers to see how they would perform. And they were very, very basic tests, but it set up a framework for the company to extend if they wanted to. So after doing all that, we did see an improvement. So remember back at the start when we talked about that, there was those 8 days to a release. How long does anyone think that we improved by? How much do you reckon we improved by? Who reckons 5 days? 5 days, yeah? Who reckons 1 day? 2 days?
2 hours.
2 hours? Anyone got any other numbers?
30 minutes.
Sorry?
30 minutes.
30 minutes. All right, let's see. All right, almost 2 hours. And that was really rough. Right, that was very inefficient. Sort of, we automated the manual process. I think there was a lot of efficiencies we could have got out of that, and I reckon it's been about almost 12 months since I've been there. I think if they've continued on the path, and I'm going to go check in on them soon, I reckon they should be down to 30 minutes. So you guys are just about right. You know, it took us, you know, all those manual sort of tedious processes just disappeared. You know, we weren't doing, you know, DevOps as in we weren't working as closely together as we could have, but we found some efficiencies using automation. And this is just the start, right? So at the time that we rolled off the project, they were starting to realise some of the benefits in the work that we were doing, and they were restructuring their teams so they could work and focus more on some of this. So let's recap. Let's look at what we talked about today. So for me, the most important thing is to work out what's important. Figure out what your co-workers want, what your customers want. Work out how you're going to measure your progress once you've set your goals. Build a team and encourage collaboration. Get those teams really working hard. Start small and then iterate. You know, don't worry about the big picture, just get that one thing going. Make sure you understand how it works and continue the development on that. Share everything you do. Right? Don't worry about if it's good or bad, just share it. Let everyone know what you're doing, because without, you know, you creating that involvement, you're not going to get traction with your project. And then choose your next adventure. They're my details again. If you want to get in touch with me on LinkedIn or Twitter, please do. Any questions? Yes? That was a 6-month project. And I'll put a caveat on that. We had a lot of disruption in the beginning, and I reckon we did most of the work in the last 2 months. It was more arguing and sort of working out. Yeah, so I reckon last 2 months was the work, and we had 4 months of just backwards and forwards and meetings and wasting time. But there's a lot more to it than what I've just shown you. There's a whole bunch of legacy code and and SVN repository migrations to Git and other magic that I'm too scared to talk about. Look, it was fine. It was just the way they were using it, I think, that was more the problem.
Why would that company, what do you think, stop that company from coming up with that ultimate solution such that they need to bring you guys?
That's a really good question. They're all smart people. There's no way that I would dispute anything like that. The people that wrote the software, the developers were awesome. The environment was good. Everyone got along. The culture was great. They were just too busy. They just couldn't see outside that square because they were so focused. And it wasn't only them. They realised that they wanted to change things. They weren't sure how. But it was the pressure from above was just, there's a client just called up and he's just signed a gazillion-dollar contract and we need this feature in. Right? They were also using client-funded money to fund development. So a client would say, look, I'll give you an extra 20 grand, but you have to build this integration into your software. So those features, those demands were getting pushed right from the top as this is the most important thing that you're working on now. Just get rid of everything else. Right? And because they didn't have any regression tests, they didn't have any testing around their environment, once a production release went out that was broken, it was like, oh crap, we've got to fix this. So bypass all the testing, just jump on the box, copy the DLL in, restart the service, and we're up and running. So then you don't even know what version of the code you're running in software. So they had all these other problems going on, and it's just time. I seriously think it's just time. We were talking about the 20% rule, all that stuff. It's just there was no 20% to improve.
So was that being driven top down then? Not driven, the lack of the ability to see outside their own square. Was that, do you reckon it was within those discrete groups, or was it?
No, I think that the discrete groups wanted to do something about it. So I'll extend on it. There was a certain tester in the test group that really wanted to explore some test automation. So he's the one that did the login script using Catalan framework. So that was awesome. So he really wanted to get involved, but his manager, his actually team leader in the test group, was squashing the effort. And I actually hid him in a corner to help get it, and got him on board to help us write that test. And I had meetings upon meetings arguing with his manager. She's going, oh, but we need to do Selenium tests and we need to do it this way. We can't use that Catalan framework. I said, yeah, but you're not doing the Selenium tests. We've got something that works today. Let's just use it. And it was that kind of mindset as well. Like we've done it this way, or we want to do it this way. We shouldn't be doing it that way, kind of thing. But yeah, it was definitely when you're embarking on these kinds of adventures, it's really important to have top-down support. And when your boss is pushing you to go in a different direction, it's pretty hard to say to him, no, look, we're going to do this and not deliver that. That's very difficult.
Did they know they were doing DevOps?
Well, they weren't, but...
no, at the end.
Well...
They understand it.
Yes and no. I think they understood where they had a better understanding of it, but they were nowhere near where they needed to be. So DevOps, remember, DevOps is not only about that technical aspect that I've told you about. It's about the culture movement. And this was just the beginning for them. They started to see some benefits in working a different way, and they were shifting. So I doubt they'd be there yet now, but they'll get there if they keep it up. Sorry.
Yeah, I've generally not seen load testing included in the automated test suite, in a CI pipeline. Was there a particular reason to include that? What did you get out of it?
Well, one of their reasons was they wanted to scale their platform, and they weren't even sure if they needed to, and they weren't sure what the limit was. So one of the things we were asked to do was build a testing framework to load test their application. So I work at NAB at the moment, and we've got extensive load testing so every commit you make that goes through the pipeline, it gets load tested. It's pretty. It doesn't get spoken about much, I must admit, but it's a very real part of software development. Okay.
You just interpret the results at a high level,
you don't. Yeah, so you got thresholds. So I think some of the thresholds with the tests were okay. So it's going to be varied, right? But if it sits between, I don't know, 1,000 cars to 2,000 cars before the response time rolls off, then we're okay, kind of thing. I don't know if those are actually the figures, but so load tests are a bit ambiguous because you don't know what's happening at the time. How can you replicate, real load tests in production because you just don't know what's going to happen. So you get thresholds.
But it was useful.
Yeah. Well, it actually told us that there was no way that they were going to ever exceed their scale on those two servers. Actually, it was quite surprising.
So that upper limit was pretty quick.
It was huge, yeah. We couldn't sort of throttle out servers in the end. Anything else? No, we're all quiet. Have we finished on time? We're early? Oh, we've got like 15 minutes. So, oh wow, I must have gone through that really quickly. Do we want to talk about anything else? No, we're all cool? Okay, well, I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm going to sit here. So if anyone wants to come up and have a chat, please feel welcome. If not, we'll call it quits.
Thank you.